Ryan here, Dry Creek Wrangler School, Monday, July 1st, and we just finished up today's classes, and the students are inside just kind of resting and hanging out, waiting for supper to be ready. And we just had another storm roll through. We've had a number of them today, and so I thought I'd slip in here and make a video while I got the chance. You know, there's men, all this applies to women too, okay? But there's men out there who just live for conflict. They live for stress. They live for noise. They just live for it. And then there's guys like us who just don't want it anymore. We just want peace. There's stress everywhere. Everybody's up in arms about the election debate the other night. Gas prices, the war in Palestine and with Israel, and then all our cultural battles. And everybody's up in arms and at war. Some of that stuff is worthwhile. Some of it's worth fighting for. Morning. There's Dry Creek Wrangler School. Let's see if I can get back on track again before the video is out. I want to talk to you about something this morning. I want to tell you a little bit of a story and maybe 2 or 3 stories.
Yeah, I had my eyes closed that time. Its arm fell off.
I just want to see if I help some young person a little bit. Now I'm going to be deliberately kind of vague on this story, and maybe not too vague because it's not about me, and I want to respect another man's privacy. But I think the story's worth telling. Tom and I just got back, as many of you know, from Wyoming, where we went up there and rode with a bunch of guys with At Ease Horsemanship. There was everybody there impressed me. A lot of guys with no experience, different physical not handicaps, but difficulties because of lack of experience. And everybody was they were all troopers, man. They did great. But there was one young man on that ride that just thoroughly impressed me. This young man had been up there a year ago and was riding, and he had a horse accident, and he broke 10 ribs. Now, most of us who've been actively riding for years have broken ribs. I have. Most of the guys I know I have. But none of us have ever broke 10 ribs. But medically proven, he's got the x-rays, he broke 10 ribs. Punctured lung, one lung deflated. I think he lacerated or punctured his spleen. It was a bad wreck. And there happened to be a vehicle in the area that's close enough by to get him in the vehicle, get him down and get him to the hospital and save his life. It was a bad deal. This year, 1 year later, that young man was up there with him. He got on the same horse he was riding when that wreck happened last year. We went back up on that mountain and went to that spot. That young man rode that horse, the same horse, up the same mountain, and we rode to that spot 1 year later. Now, if you'd say, Dwayne, that's tough, I would agree. I would agree 1,000%, but I think most people don't understand the type of toughness that is. When in circles today, young men and old men, when they talk about toughness, most of the time they talk about physical toughness. I want to tell you unequivocally, there is no such thing as physical toughness if there is no mental. That young man had a courage and a mental toughness that if he did not have, all the physical healing in the world would not have helped. We have been, and we've discussed it on this channel, and it's been discussed quite a bit, you know, in different places, on social media and stuff. There's been an epidemic of weak men in this country for a long time now. Young men who were raised without dads, or not raised like they should be by their dads, men who were raised by their mothers, men who bought into the garbage that culture and society has put out, this nonsense about masculine, toxic masculinity, which does not exist. There is no such thing. There's no more toxic masculinity than there is toxic femininity. There's just toxic humans, okay? And being tough, being a man in and of itself, does not make you toxic. And so there are men who begin to see that they've been lied to, and they come out and they're pursuing this, I want to be tough. But a lot of times they're pursuing it the wrong way. They're pursuing the wrong thing. Toughness is not tattoos. I'm not anti-tattoo. I don't have a problem with your tattoos. Don't care anything about it. Doesn't bother me a bit. So don't take this. Every time I mention tattoos, there's somebody gets on and gets real defensive. I don't care about your tattoos. Have them. All right. I've seen some really cool tattoos. But you see a man covered in tattoos, that doesn't make him a tough man. Toughness is not about how many push-ups you can do, or what you can bench press, or how far you can run. Toughness is in the mind. And your body can be the most perfect, the most conditioned specimen. But if you don't have a tough mind, if you don't have a toughness of the mind, if you don't have a tough will, you're not tough. It's all pointless. So if someone were to come to me and say, Dwayne, how do I was not raised to be a tough man. Where do I start? You start with your mind. You start with your mind. And how do you start with your mind? You put yourself in tough situations that you can overcome, but it ain't easy. Because your mind and your will always quit before your body does. People who quit, you're doing a run and you go so far and you stop, it's not because your body gave out. It's because your will and your mind said, I've had enough, I don't want to do this anymore. You always work on your mind. I've told this before in other videos. When I went back to the police academy the second time, the Alaska State Trooper Academy in Alaska, I was 10 years older than the next oldest cadet. I was 49. Wasn't in great shape. And, but I went back. I wanted to do it. And that first week, they have this thing where they're gonna weed you out and they're gonna break you, just like the military. The Alaska State Trooper Academy is very paramilitary, like a lot of academies are these days. Our instructors we had Marine Corps drill sergeants. We had an ex-Navy SEAL. They were tough guys. So we're in the gym and working out, and this is Hell Week. It's not like this the whole academy, but that first week. And they got us doing push-ups, blow the whistle, scream, you flip over on your backs and do leg lifts, or then you jump up and do burpees, the whole thing, and see who we can break. And so we're lined up and we're doing push-ups, and I'm at the point, I'm almost 50, and on a good day I could do at that time I could do about 30 push-ups. That's not very many push-ups. But I had worked my way up to that point, and we were way past 30. And so I'm like, I'd get 2 and I'd get halfway up and then my arms would collapse and I'd have to turn my face sideways so I didn't smash my face against the floor. And then I'd get up and there was a young man beside me, I don't know, 26, 27 years old, and one of the instructors came over and dropped down beside him on his hands and knees and got right in his face and started screaming at him. just screaming at him. And so I'm like, well, I'm next, but I'm just going to keep going. And so I'd come up, and then I'd collapse. And I'd do a cheap push-up and get all the way up and then lower myself down until I collapse. And then, I would just go. Whatever I could do, that's what I did. And after a little bit, the instructor got up from this kid and walked around me and went to this kid over here and dropped on his knees and started screaming at him. He just completely left me alone. And I thought at first, well, it's because I'm old. And he's just being respectful to the old guy. But I realized as we went along, what they were working on was the mental toughness of this kid. And he saw the old guy is not in the same physical condition as these kids. But there ain't nothing wrong with his heart. And I don't mean my physical pump. I mean, my mind was like, whatever it takes, I'm going to do it. And I just kept at it and kept at it. And eventually, as most of you know who've been on here for a while, we were doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I did a backwards tactical roll and something snapped in my neck. By the end of the day, I was in an ambulance on the way to the hospital. And I had almost severed my spinal cord. The vertebrae, which not from that incident, but my vertebrae were off-centered and were pinching my spinal cord. It was a pretty bad deal. And so the commandant of the academy called me in and said, you've got something these kids don't have. And that's life experience and a mental toughness. And he said, we don't want to lose you. He said, so we've never done this before and we never do this. But I'm going to send you to another specialist to get their opinion. My original doctor had said, you're done. I cannot sign you off medically to continue what you're doing. The commandant said, we're going to get another opinion. Now, if this second opinion agrees with the first doctor, then legally there's nothing we can do. We have to send you home. And I said, okay. So they took me to a second opinion, and they did their test, and they come back, and they said, she said, I don't agree with the first doctor. She said, but I don't agree, you're in a lot worse shape than he said you were. There's no way I can sign off on this. So we went back to academy, and the commandant and the instructors came in and said, man, legally there's nothing we can do. You have to go. So I went up in the dorm, and I was packing. There's nothing I could do. And the one instructor that had been a Marine DI, came running up the stairs, and he came in the room. He said, I only got a second, I got to get back down to class. But I just wanted you to know that we know that it wasn't your heart that quit. Your body betrayed you. And if you ever get that fixed and you ever want to come back to this academy, you are more than welcome. That's mental toughness. Mental toughness is not physical strength. Mental toughness is, I'm not going to quit. It hurts, but I'm not going to quit. Oh, it's hurting worse. I'm not going to quit. Oh, I don't know. I've never experienced pain and discomfort at this level, but I'm not going to quit. I don't know if I can go any further, but I'm not going to quit. That's not physical toughness, folks. That's mental toughness. And without mental toughness, physical toughness doesn't mean anything. It means nothing. When I was way younger, I had bought a horse from the Four Corners area in Colorado, Smoky Blue. And we were living on Angel Ranch on top of Poncha Pass outside of Salida, Colorado. And there were 3 corrals that were the gates open, so it was all 3. And I went out and saddled him up, stepped up in the saddle, and I was out there by myself, and he broke in half. Now, again, those of you who know here what we're doing, and you know me, you know I can't ride bucking horses. I ain't a bronc rider. And he jumped around a bit, and he piled me up good. I got up, went over and caught him, and stepped back on, and he bucked through all 3 of them corrals and threw me into the poles. And I got up, dragged myself over there, got back on him, and he bucked off through all three of those corrals again and piled me up into a fence post. And I got up that next time and I caught him, and I stood there for a minute leaning on that saddle. Now, my leg wasn't broke, my arm wasn't broke, my ribs wasn't broke, and my head wasn't broke. But I had figured I about had enough of this nonsense. So when I leaned there on the saddle for a minute, and what was I doing? Was I gathering my physical strength, my physical toughness? No. It's like I can't quit. I'm committed. I have to finish this. I don't know how much more I have left, but I've got to finish it. And I climbed back up in the saddle again. And he didn't budge. And so I rode him around. I rode him around that corral for a bit. And then I got off and took the saddle off and put him up. My body had not quit. But my will had said, I don't know if I want to keep doing this. And I had to summon up a mental toughness to continue. I had the physical resources to continue and do it again. But I don't know if you've ever been bucked off the same horse 3 times in a row before, but you know, it's easy to say, I don't know if I want to keep doing this. But I kept doing it. And I was a really young man at the time. I was married and had 3 little kids, but I was still only 27. That made a big difference in the rest of my life. That was a watershed moment. That was a touchstone moment for me. When I was on the way to Idaho, before that, and to go packing in the mountains to go to school, and I arrived and there wasn't anybody there to meet me, and my box of my saddle, my chaps, and all my gear had been stolen, and I was out of money. It was like, I can make a phone call and I can get a ticket back home. But I looked at the girl behind the counter. I said, which way to Chalice, Idaho? And she pointed up the road, and I picked up my stuff and started walking. Mental toughness. You will get nowhere in life. Nowhere in life if your mental toughness does not exceed your physical toughness. You say, Dwayne, marital relationships don't work. It's because you're not mentally tough. You can't endure the hard times. You throw in the towel too quick, too easy. You don't try to, let's try one more thing and see if we can fix this. Let's endure one more thing. Let's go through one more thing. Your mental toughness has to exceed your physical toughness. No matter how physically tough you are, if your mental toughness does not exceed that by a small bit, you'll lose every time. Because your mind will fail you before your body does. Your will fail you before your body does. So your will and your mind has to be tougher to go a little bit further than your body can. And that's how you'll succeed. That's how you make it. All right? Hope it helps you. Be logical. Be reasonable. Good morning. Dwayne here, Dry Creek Wrangler School. I've told 2 or 3 stories from the time that I was working out of Chalice, Idaho, up in the Frank Church Wilderness, where I got my start packing. This story comes from the same period, and I think this story has an important message for this time of year for a lot of folks. I'll explain that in a minute. So we were up in the Frank Church River Wilderness, and there were me, and it was myself and the 2 young friends I've talked about earlier who had come out. I think they were from Ohio, and we were staying in a large canvas wall tent like hunters use. And there was us 3, and then there was one of the regular guys that worked for the lodge, a veteran packer by the name of John. It was a day of, we didn't have any big chores or work to do, and I think we were getting caught up on laundry. I think that's what we were doing that day. We were just taking a day and getting stuff done. Now laundry was, we had a big tin wash tub, and you put water and your soap in it, and then there was a device, it was like a metal, upside down metal funnel with couple layers inside. And you use that to plunge the jeans in the water and your clothes in the water. It was a process. You had to wring them out and you had to rinse them. It was a physical process. So it took a while, especially, a bunch of guys out there. We were all in the tent, and I don't remember, I think I was digging around in the very bottom of my duffel bag, trying to find like my last clean shirt so I could wash what I had. I don't remember exactly what the deal was, but I reached down in the bottom of my duffel bag to find that shirt, and I found my Bible. Now, I had not been reading my Bible. I had just stuck the Bible in there at the last minute when I left Kentucky, and just stuck it in there. That's where it stayed. But I pulled that Bible out, set it on the bed so I could finish digging down in there. And one of the boys across the tent there looked at that and said, "Hey, I got one of them too." And he reached down and dug down in his duffel bag and he pulled out a Bible. And his buddy said, "Yeah, me too." And he reached in his bag and pulled out a Bible. And then, shock of shock, Big John said, "You know what? I got one of them too." And he reached down in his stuff, dug around, and pulled out a Bible. Now, you got to understand, we're living in the mountains for weeks at a time. There's no bars, no clubs, no nothing. So we weren't, but ain't none of us were living a Christian lifestyle. None of us were living like a Christian ought to live. And none of us had a clue that the other person had any bent in that direction. We had cases of beer and there was booze flowing in. And there was a big cardboard box of reading material for in the evening or for when it was raining. And there were girly magazines and stuff in there. We weren't living the life. And nobody was getting down and praying, at night by their bed. Nobody was praying over their meal. Nobody was working outside singing, "Shall we gather at the river?" We just didn't have a clue. And I think maybe every one of us felt like whatever extent of faith or Christianity we had, we were the only one up there that had it. And none of us had it enough that we were being open about it to anybody else. Each one of us felt alone. And if there's any sentiment expressed to me via emails and comments on the channel and stuff, it's people feel alone. People contact me and say, "Dwayne, so much about I'm so grateful about what you put on the video because I didn't know there was anybody else out there today who feels that." I don't know anybody around me, they say, but I agree with you, and that's the way I feel, and that's the way I live, but just where I'm at, I'm so alone. And holiday season this time of year is, I understand it's one of the times of year that has the highest depression rates, highest alcohol problems, drug overdoses, and people eventually just taking their life. Why? Because people feel alone. All right, people feel like they're alone. But we're not. And I don't mean in a spiritual sense, God is always with you, Jesus is with you. There's all of that. But humanly speaking, just like up there, each one of us individually did not know that we weren't alone in carrying a Bible, in holding some concept of the Christian faith. Carrying a Bible not because we were what we were supposed to be, but I think if I can be a little bit cerebral here, I think most of us carried one because it was an emblem of what we knew we ought to be, and we weren't. And so each person individually could feel like, I'm not what I should be. This is an emblem of how I should be living. This is an emblem of what I should be. And so I don't want to get rid of that. But I think I'm the only one that feels this way. And so I'm not going to share this emblem with others when all of us were on the same page. I've been to 9 different countries. I've been all over the United States. And I've never been anywhere where I did not meet good men. Men who stood for what was right. Men who were honest. Men who helped other people. Men who supported and loved their wife. Men who loved and supported and took care of their children. Men who did a good, honest day's labor for what was often not an honest wage. But they just did it. They just carried on with their life. And every time I'm like, man, we're everywhere. We're everywhere. But we're the silent majority. When you walk through the supermarket, the grocery store, you might think you are the only one in there at that time that feels so lost in today's modern, shallow, cheap society. But I guarantee you there are other men in there who feel just exactly the same way you do, and they feel just as isolated. They feel just as singular. They're the only one. Ladies, I know there's ladies out there that feel like you are the only. Sometimes it seems like you're the only lady who still wants to be a lady. You're proud of your femininity. You hold on to your femininity. And you respect yourself. You respect other women. And you still respect men. And you're not alone. You're not alone. You're not alone. If you're sitting in a big city somewhere, and holidays are rolling around, and you don't have somewhere, you don't have family to go to for Christmas dinner. You don't have anybody to put up a tree, or you put up a tree and there's no gifts underneath because you don't have anybody to get gifts to or get gifts from. And you can feel isolated and solitary and alone. But you are not the only one. You just don't know the ones around you are feeling exactly the same way you do. And there's a story in the Bible, in the Old Testament, about a prophet who went through a great battle and had a great victory. His name was Elijah. And the queen at the time says, you know what, I'm gonna kill you for that. And so he takes off running. And he goes out in the wilderness and he climbs up in a cave. And he takes his cloak and he covers his head up and says, I want to die. Just kill me now. God, just kill me and take me home. After a while, an angel comes in and says, here, you're hungry. Why don't you have a snack? Give him something to eat. Just take a nap. So he takes a nap. And then after a while, the angel comes in and wakes him up, says, here, you need something else to eat. Give him something to eat. Now here, take a nap. Then after a little bit, God comes in and they, have the, the still small voice. You can look it up in Kings. It's the prophet Elijah. God says, Elijah, what's the matter with you? What's wrong with you? Why are you so depressed and suicidal? And Elijah says, I'm alone. I am the only person left in all of Israel that believes in you and fights for you and does what is right. God says, Elijah, I've got 7,000 more men just like you. You're not alone. Now get up, go up here and go do what I'm gonna tell you to do. And I'm gonna send somebody along to go with you. I'm gonna send you an assistant, a partner, a help. All right. And if Elijah can just want to crawl in a cave, put a cape over his head and say, God, take me home now. I'm all by myself. Then it's understandable if we feel the same way. Okay? But just like Elijah, you're not the only one around. And you say, Dwayne, your channel here, and it's this and that and that. Listen, when it comes to these videos, when it comes to horsemanship, I only have one thing to offer that others don't offer. That sounds terrible. That more people don't offer. Okay? And that's just a gift of gab. The ability to tell stories, the ability to take things that are complex and heavy and simplify them down and put them down where we're all can say, hey, look, around me right now, I know guys around me right now that feel exactly the same way I do about just about everything that I do. They have the same standards. They live life at the same level. They hold men to the same standards. They hold themselves to the same standards. I'm not wrong. The thing is, most of these men out there, they are the silent majority. Okay? They're the guy down the street that's working in the mechanic shop, that's changing the brakes or changing the oil in your car. You walk in and you say, well, I go to the Walmart Auto Center back there, and there's just a bunch of, there's one guy in there at least. He's quiet. You don't notice him. He don't spread around what he thinks and how he feels, but he's just like you. He's just like you. He has the same frustrations. He has the same worries. He has the same fears. He has the same standards. He has the same view of things. He holds himself to the same standard of living that you do. He's honest. He's hardworking. He'll step in and help somebody. He is disturbed by the cultural trends that are going around just as much as you are. But he does not have the platform or the ability or the willingness, and all these are natural. I'm not saying that's a negative thing. It isn't spreading everywhere. Okay? The guy driving the truck that's delivering the milk to the grocery store, the truck drivers out there, oh man, there's a whole fleet of those guys that are just like you. Just like you and I. Alright? The telephone repairman. Just whatever. Okay? We're not alone. And there's a lot of men out there like me who have had a lot of bad experiences in the modern day organized church. And it's got to the point where the church has been so, and when I say the church that each of us individually, multiple churches that we have dealt with, has gotten so dishonest and so uncaring and so helpful and have so lost the actual truth of what Christ is that we've had to leave. And the problem is a lot of times I leave from where I am My wife and I are out here, and you're in Wisconsin, and you've gone through kind of the same thing, and so you've left, and you've left a gathering that is no longer like-minded as you are. And you and I don't connect. We don't communicate. So if we're not careful, I feel all isolated and alone in my desire to serve God as the Bible says, not as organized chest thumpers say. And you're in Wisconsin and you feel the same way, and there's somebody in Ohio that feels the same way, and there's somebody down in Florida that's gone through the same thing in their own way. And we, each one of us, feel alone because we're not with each other. But guys, we're not alone. All right? We're not alone.
That just never gets old.
We're just not in the same room. And, people contact me about horsemanship, and they're like, Dwayne, that it's so nice to see this on here because I go to a part of a boarding stable in Connecticut because that's all that's available around here, and they've got all this different crazy ways, and I have felt so alone out here. Well, all I do is just communicate. All right, I get on here and I flap my dang gums. All right, and I communicate. There's a gazillion people out there that feel when it comes to horses, and their horsemanship is the same as ours. And in fact, their horsemanship is way better than mine, way more advanced than mine. I watch guys on the internet because I'm always studying, I'm always searching, I'm always watching videos on YouTube, and I find these horse guys that have been at it they've had YouTube channels for 5 or 6 years, and they have almost no subs. And I watch it and I'm like, man, this guy knows way more than I do. I watch his video and he says this and he does this. I'm like, man, this guy's got it. This guy's really good. He doesn't have any subs. It's not because his horsemanship is not equivalent. His horsemanship a lot of times is better than mine. He's got more experience, he's more advanced, he has more finesse than I do. He just doesn't have that extra communication. All right? I don't offer anything singular that millions of people around this globe can't offer. All right? I just am talented at communicating it. All right? Communicating in a simple and entertaining way, I suppose. Okay? And the only reason I bring that up, and the only reason that I say this, is because I need you guys to understand that just because it's not, we think if it's not put on social media, or it's not on television, or it's not whatever, then it must not exist anymore, and that's not true. The reason we don't see more people like us is because most people like us are busy working their jobs, raising their families, doing what needs to be done, doing what is supposed to be done, saying what needs to be said to those who say it, and they're not out there. They're the silent majority. And so I don't want you to carry on thinking you're alone, because you're not alone. Not only are you not alone, but folks, listen to me. This is important, okay? Listen to me. Not only are we not alone, but we are not the minority. Think about that for a minute. We're not the minority, okay? It's just the other side is the louder side. And they're the ones that have taken control of the communication. And they're the ones you hear from the most. They're the loudest. They're the most obnoxious. All right? But they're not the most. They're just the most loudest. Not the most. Okay? We are not the minority. You say, we, Dwayne, who are you saying? Are we good people? Honest people? Working people? Level-headed, logical people? Serving people? We're not the minority. All right? So don't quit. Don't give up. And, Dwayne, what do?
you start looking. And by looking, I don't mean going up and banging on doors. I mean you start watching. And you'll start seeing. You'll start seeing, and you'll start running into like-minded people. All right? People who aren't just throwing up their hands and sticking their head in a hole in the ground and pretending things don't exist. So I just want to encourage you. All right? Holiday season's coming up. And I know from law enforcement days, that's a time when people are really feel alone. Well, you know, if you feel alone, if you find someone else who feels alone, and you two meet each other,
That just never gets old.
you're not alone. And then if you two find somebody else, and by finding somebody else, everybody jumps to relationships. I'm just talking about friendships. All right? You said, Dwayne, how do I find somebody like-minded? Read the dang t-shirt. All right? Read the t-shirt. Read the ball caps. They'll tell you. Okay? They'll tell you a lot of times. Just start striking up conversations. But be careful when you strike up conversations. Because, I'm going to throw a rock in the hornet's nest here. Most of your good, honest, hard-working, level-headed people are working people. Okay? They're working people. All right? So when you go into a place of business, and I'm not talking about your dang blue-haired baristas in Starbucks offering you crap coffee. All right? Although I'm sure there's good people in there too, and there's level-headed people in there. But I mean, when you go down to get your oil changed, or you hire somebody to come out and give you a bid on fixing your furnace, just strike up a conversation and just start meeting folks. All right? Because we're not alone. Our Bible is hid down in the bottom of our duffel bag. And until we bring it out and lay it on the bed, ain't nobody else going to bring theirs out and lay it on the bed either. And that metaphor goes all the way across. All right? That's not simply strictly about religion or faith. Okay? So anyhow, I just want to encourage you this morning and for this upcoming season and just keep ticking. Just keep ticking. You said, Dwayne, I can't find anybody. You just ain't found nobody yet. You just ain't found nobody yet. Okay? So anyhow, wish you guys all the best. And I hope you're nice and warm out there. It's been.
Good morning. I'm here at the Brandon School. About 7 years ago, I did another stint and went back into law enforcement for a short period of time in remote Bush, Alaska. I was 49 years old, and I was in between lanes, and I had done it before, and it paid pretty good, and it was really out the bush, and I thought, I'm gonna go back into it, and I'm gonna try it again. And so I did. I got on where the Native Association, the Native Association was in Kotzebue, Alaska, on the far west coast. And then, so I was working in villages up the Cobalt River. And I'd been out of law enforcement for a lot of years. And I went back into it, and I wasn't in it for the second time. Because that's when I got hurt back at the academy. But I had to go back to police academy. All my certifications had run out, and that's when I did all the damage to my neck. But the way it worked out there, you got hired on. You worked with the Alaska State Troopers, but you weren't a trooper, but you went through their academy. But you got paid by a particular Alaska Native Association. That was your paycheck. And so you had to be accepted by the troopers, you had to be accepted by the Native Association, and you had to be accepted by a particular village.
so I got sent out to the first village, and I was just there. I don't know. I hadn't been there a week yet. I didn't know anybody, and it was wintertime, and it was 20 below zero, and I got a call one night about a domestic violence, and usually that's where family members are in a fight, or maybe not a fight, maybe somebody's getting beat up. But I got a call, and when I say a call, I mean a cell phone. It was an anonymous call, didn't know who it was. Out in the village, you have no, it's just you. You may be in a village of 100 people, 200 people, 450 people, 700 people, and it's just you. You're by yourself. There's no dispatch. There's no radio. There's no partner. There's no backup. There's no somebody else taking over the shift. It's just you. And the other thing is due to politics, legally, you're unarmed as far as the firearm. I said legally. All right. You have OC pepper spray. There at the end, we wound up with the tasers and and a baton. But technically, officially, legally, that's all you had. And so you can imagine, if you call somebody, if you have a friend today in law enforcement, ask them, have you ever gotten a domestic violence call and you answer that call alone? And the answer is going to be no. You'd never. Most law enforcement officers that get killed in the line of duty get killed at domestic violence calls. It's a two-edged sword because you have the violence of whoever's doing the assaulting. But a lot of times what you have when you're going to stop the assault and you arrest the assaulter, then the assaultee, it's their girlfriend or their wife or whoever, all of a sudden they turn on you. It's proven, it's psychological, right? It's their bread and butter, their safety, they're going to be blamed for it, and they'll anyhow, it's just not right. And then so I got a call, it was about 2 o'clock in the morning, and I was by myself in the village. 100 miles, let's see, I was in, this village is probably 60 miles up the river from Constitute, there was no road. Like I said, no partner, no dispatch, no backup. Nobody was coming. All right. And not only the call did it say there was domestic violence, but it said that it had alcoholism. Well, that just triples the situation. And there had been shots fired. And it was 20 below zero. I did not know the village. I did not know anybody in the village. But somehow, I don't remember who, I had called the mayor or somebody, woke them up and said, hey, where's this person live? Where's his house? And whoever it was, they told me this. And I went to the house. Now there was a narrow set of stairs. Just one person, room for one person to walk. There were 2 houses that were up on stilts. A lot of the houses are built on stilts because of soft line and snowdrifts and everything. And so there were 2 houses built on stilts that were right up against each other. All right. And so this house, the one house was facing out that way. So here's the back of the house. And this set of steps for this house goes up against the back of this house. And it's an extremely narrow set of steps. And then we're not talking 3 or 4 steps. We're talking about 12 to 15 steps. They're setting up pretty high. And so you go to this narrow set of steps, and there's a hard right 90-degree turn, and there's a landing about 3.5 feet wide. It's as wide as the door. That's it. And you go up to the door. Now I walked up, and I got halfway up those steps. And I stopped. This was a defining moment. This was a defining moment right here. All right? Now, here's what I'm going to say. I got halfway up those steps and I stopped.
And I said, Dwayne, you're by yourself. Nobody's coming out. You're wearing Arctic clothes, it's 20 below zero. And you're on a little narrow set of steps. You're going a 90-degree turn, and there's no way to get out anywhere except from that door. And you don't know what's going to come through that door. If they come out that door, if they come busting violently out of that door, and they have a firearm in their hand, what are you going to do? Because if you don't have that determined, you're not going to make it. And I stood there for a second, and I took a good, hard look down into the well of myself. And I said, can you do what needs to be done? Because if you can't, do not on that door. Those who've been in situations know what I'm talking about. And those who haven't, you'll never know what I'm talking about.
That just never gets old.
And I stood there for a second and I said, if somebody comes busting out of that door, violently, and I see any hint of a firearm, I'm gonna shoot him. Simple as that. I'm gonna shoot him. Now, I'm law enforcement, white man, Alaska Native Village. There's going to be all kinds of court. There's going to be all kinds of trouble. It doesn't matter how righteous it is, the shooting, it does not matter anything. There's going to be a great deal of trouble. Not only that, but carrying with you for the rest of your life the fact that you shot someone. That's not a light thing. That's not an easy thing. And I looked down in the well. And the me that was deep inside, that we don't often get with, looked up. And I said, I can do this. And I went up. And he said, Dwayne, you were unarmed. How you going to shoot? I said, I didn't say I was unarmed. I said, legally, we're not supposed to be armed. But we carry, you wear a ballistic vest. There's two ways to wear a bulletproof ballistic vest. You can wear it under your shirt. You put the vest on, put your uniform shirt over it. Or they have external carriers, which you unzip and put the ballistic vest in. And that's what you mostly see when you see law enforcement or military, and they've got these big bulky vests on and they stand there with their thumbs in like this, which, by the way, is very foolish and never advised. But that's an external vest, and it's got a zipper in the front. Well, I would unzip that, and I had a 1911 zipped in there. It wasn't visible, it wasn't in sight, but only a fool would have that job out there by himself, regardless of some idiotic, stupid left-wing politics who's doing that. And I did. So I went up, unzipped my coat, got everything situated, backed up to the railing so the door was like this, and got as much out of the edge of the door as I could and knocked on the door. And there was no answer, dead silent. Knocked on the door again, and there was no answer, dead silent. So I stood there on that landing, on that door, and just listened. And for those of you who've been in extreme cold and in the army, sound carries on. You would not believe how well sound carries when it's brutally cold. In flat country, snow and ice. And I listened, and I heard nothing. I did not hear anywhere in the village. I heard no screaming. I heard no more gunshots. I heard no fights. I heard nothing. And so in a little bit, I zipped back up, went back down the steps, got in my side-by-side, went back to the office where I was staying. And so what point am I making? There's a lot of talk today, and there's been a lot. Sorry, I'm laying my ladder down here. I did that video a while back where I talked about that fella in Romania, and we're not revisiting that. Okay, I said what I needed to say about a particular side of this whole masculinity thing that's coming out, and I'm not revisiting it, all right? But there is a debate today about masculinity and about manhood and about what constitutes a dangerous man. Now, and everyone, so many people, and this applies anywhere in life. This applies in business, this applies in family, this applies in being a husband, being a father, like I said, being on a job site, being an employer. It applies to horsemanship. It applies to anything you do. And so we're going to equate being a dangerous man with being a man who gets things done. Okay, we're gonna just kind of blend those together for me, right? Because that's how the illustrations come about. There are a lot of men out there who are younger than me. Got the door shut because I'm trying to say that. So there are a lot of men out there who are younger than me. A lot of men out there who are a lot more fit than I am, who can do more push-ups. A lot more men who can definitely deal with me in a boxing ring pretty handily. I wouldn't be much of a threat. But there are a lot of men, a lot of those men, who would have gone halfway up that stairs. And that's as far as they would have gone. After a little bit, they would have done the inspection, they would have looked inside, and they would have gone right back down upstairs. And they would have gone back to the house. Being dangerous, being effective, being competent is not just what you're capable of doing. There are a lot of really intelligent people out there. There are a lot of mathematically inclined people out there. There are a lot of physically fit, a lot of charismatic people out there who aren't going to make it. And the reason they're not going to make it is not because they can't make it, but it's because they have never looked down deep inside and said, will I do what needs to be done? They've never faced it. I get a horse, and I talked in the last video about the condition of my neck and everything, and I'll get a horse, and I've got young people that work here with me, young guys. My son was here for the first part of this last school year, and I had some bronchi horses coming. And I did the groundwork and everything, but we get to a certain point, and I'm like, Will, and he's like, Dad, let me top that one off for you, because I'm intelligent about it, and I'm not. But I look at it, and there's times when I look around and this horse, this needs to be handled, this needs to be taken care of. And I understand the cost. I understand the danger. I understand the possibility. Will I climb those stairs? Yes. Yes, I climb those stairs. Now, if in that situation with that call, if I had access to back up, would I avail myself of it? You darn right I would. In a situation like that, and man, if I got access to a whole squad of Marines, it's like, let's go, boys. But if you don't, it's not about what you're physically capable of doing. It's about what are you willing to do? What are you willing to do? What are you willing to face? What danger are you willing to face? What catastrophic failure are you willing to take a chance on?
Now, it does no good to say, I'm willing to do this, if you're not physically capable of doing it, okay? I've had physical training. I've been, I've had fight training, and I've been in some altercations, and I've been to the gym, and I've worked out, and I've got this, and I've lived a pretty full life. I'm not one of these guys that runs 20 miles a day and lifts all these weights now and puts on backpacks with the weights on it and drags more weights behind me and running up and down the road. That's not me today. But I'm not inexperienced and I'm not incapable. But what I find to be much, much more reassuring is I'm willing. Willing to what? Willing to go there. But I want you to stop and really listen to what I'm going to say. Okay, because it has a great possibility for you to take it wrong in both directions. I do not obey the law for the sake of the law.
I'm out of gun juice.
All right, I heard a part of a song the other day. You guys probably know it, know the singing and everything, but I don't need the law to tell me what I ought to do. I don't know who that was. And I just heard that line as I was going through somewhere. I don't know, the radio was on or something. And that's me. Okay? I don't go around assaulting people, and it's not because the law tells me that I cannot assault people. If you refuse to do things that are wrong because you're afraid of the law, you have a very huge, important chunk of you that's missing. All right? The law is not there for the good man. The law is there for the bad man. The law is there to set up the penalties, since the bad man cannot govern himself. All right? So if I do no harm to you, it's not because the law tells me don't do harm to that person. All right? But that's a two-edged sword. If I'm walking downtown with my wife of 32 years, whom I love and respect and take very seriously my responsibility towards, and someone disrespects now this has come up before, and there's some of you have a hard time with it, so we're going to clarify it now, all right? And someone disrespects my wife, and I don't mean just the mumbles they go by or something, but I mean seriously, I'm in another aisle and she's in this aisle, and I come around the corner and there's a problem. If the law is not what keeps me, now listen to me, if the law is not what keeps me from doing harm to someone who doesn't need harm, then the law is not going to keep me from doing harm to someone that I judge needs to be dealt with. I do not live my life according to what the judicial system says. Now that's a really, really hard step for some people, and I think probably there's going to be a lot of you on here that have never really considered that concept, and you're going to need to chew on it for a while, okay? I'm not afraid of jail. I'm not afraid of the court system. I'm not afraid of police. I don't care. I'm afraid of not measuring up to what I ought to be. I'm much more scared of not being the man that does what needs to be done than I am of a judicial system that sees it differently and will come after me if I do something else. Okay, this is all just an illustration. Now there's things that the judicial system says that I don't agree with, but it has nothing to do with any of that. But I still follow the law because it says so. Right? I pay my taxes. I have opinions on that. I think that's very unconstitutional. And I think it's taken way too far, and I think to spend my money on things that I didn't vote for and I don't agree with, but the law says it, and I'm not going to go to jail over money. So there are things out there that I do because the law says so, right? But we're talking about human mankind interaction. We're talking about the serious things of life, right? I think that in our society today, and a lot of societies, a lot of advanced societies around the world today, men have not had to search themselves and find out, can I do the hard thing? Simply because it has to be done. Now, someone who's just completely clueless, who's never lived that way. Dwayne, did you have? I did. I had to go up them steps and I had to knock on them doors. Now, I knocked on other doors that did not end as anticlimactic as that one. And I got in to fight. But they didn't come busting out with a gun, and I never had to shoot anybody, which I am eternally grateful. But we did throw hands, and there were arrests, and there were pepper sprays, and there were handcuffs, and those situations come up, and when they come up, it's like you put yourself, you, the perpetrator, put yourself in this situation. I didn't ask you to do that. So you asked for it. And I'd already determined that if you asked for this, I am willing and able to give it to you. I think my wife sent it to me the other day. There was a series of clips somewhere. I don't know if it was on the news, if it was on Instagram or what, but it's interviews of women, and they asked these women, would you kill somebody for your child? And they were like, no, I don't think I could do that. No, I don't think I could do that. Then you shouldn't have a child. You should not have a child. If that, you say, well, it's taking an innocent life. If that life is putting your child in danger, physically, sexually, emotionally, that's not an innocent life. And if you can't do the hard thing in order to do the right thing, then you're an empty shell of a human being, and you're more evil than good. You're more evil than good. So, before you get married, young man,